Fire rate is an important part of a gun in Call of Duty. You want a gun that fires quickly enough to melt the enemy, but you also don't want it to be so quick that the recoil becomes unmanageable. Call of Duty developers have given us tons of slow-firing, hard-hitting weapons as a compromise, and those can actually be satisfying to use, but some of these slower guns fire really slowly. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. This has been a much-requested topic for a while, and today we're going to take an updated look at the slowest of the slow. That's right, we're going to look at the 10 slowest firing guns in Call of Duty history. Now, for this list, we will only be looking at fully automatic weapons, so burst fire and semi-auto guns are not going to count today. Also, for the sake of keeping things interesting, we are not going to count full auto shotguns since those basically all fire pretty slowly, and those probably aren't the guns you guys are interested in hearing about. You want to hear about the assault rifles, the LMGs that fired super slowly, but they hit like absolute massive tanks, and that is what we are going to go over. So you let me know which of these super slow firing guns you actually enjoyed. Drop a like, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, and at number 10 today, the DP-28 in World at War. The iconic dinner plate 28. This machine gun was a fan favorite in World at War, even if it wasn't exactly considered meta. Now, to be fair, the only meta weapon in World at War was the MP40. But the DP, it was a fun gun to use. It was fun to mess around with. It was perfectly viable despite being one of the slowest firing guns in COD history. The DP-28 fired at just 469 rounds per minute. But there's a big but here. Had a juicy 47-round circular dinner plate magazine you could eat your dinner off of in between matches, and the time to kill was actually okay. It was good, actually, because of the relatively high damage per shot, and cherry on top, firing sound was pretty awesome, which is a bonus. The DP-28 was one of the most memorable weapons from World at War, and it's technically the 10th slowest firing weapon in our category, and how we're building this out for today's list. At number 9. The AVS-36 in COD World War II. This Russian rifle was added to Call of Duty World War II as part of the Liberty Strike community event. If anybody remembers those community events, had a bit of a fan club, even though it wasn't exactly top tier. And remember, we're only talking about fire rates in this video, so the actual quality of the weapons is going to be pretty all over the place. But I think it's safe to say that the AVS-36 was probably middle of the road, middle of the pack in COD World War II. Somebody can let me know one way or another. It fired at 441 rounds per minute, making it one of the slowest guns in the game, but it did hit for between 30 and 40 base damage, so it could kill in 3 to 4 shots. Now, that's not an amazing time to kill, but in the context of COD World War II, it's pretty average. Wasn't a melt machine, wasn't underpowered. I've also heard it was good in zombies, but since I really didn't care about zombies in that game, I couldn't tell you whether the people saying that are right or wrong. But the AVS-36 gets the number 9 spot today. And if you think 441 rounds per minute is slow, wait until we get up into the upper numbers, because it is going to get a lot slower. Before we move on, guys, if you enjoy podcasts, if you enjoy the content that I bring you, definitely check out the Multiverse podcast. Me and my buddy Warren have it going. We're almost to episode 10 now, and the link is at the top of the description if you like pop culture, Marvel, Star Wars. We talk about food, we talk about movies. Heck, we talk about gaming a lot. If you guys enjoy that type of thing, click the link and get over there and subscribe. I'd love to see you guys over there. At number 8, the FG-42 in COD World War II. Honestly, I have no idea why the FG-42 was so slow in the game, because in real life, it actually fires over 900 rounds per minute. Heck, in World at War, Treyarch gave the FG-42 one of the fastest fire rates in the entire game, but in COD World War II, you want to guess? 422 rounds per minute. That's it. Again, I don't know why Sledgehammer made this thing so slow, because it's not even remotely historically accurate, but that's a topic for another video, not today. The FG featured some solid damage per shot, very manageable recoil to go along with that super slow fire rate, and during the first couple professional tournaments, it was basically the only rifle that anybody was using, because that time to kill was pretty good in the hands of a consistent shooter. Now, I could go on and on about how historically inaccurate this version of the FG-42 was, but that's not the point of the video. We're just talking about fire rates, and with a fire rate of 422 rounds per minute, the FG-42 officially takes the number 8 spot. At number 7, the Odin in Modern Warfare 2019. Not too long ago, we made a video of the beefiest assault rifles in Call of Duty history. The Odin got a pretty honorable mention. This rifle debuted in the 2019 Modern Warfare reboot, fired at 413 rounds per minute, but it also had a pretty insane base damage profile, between 36 and 48 damage, plus a 60% headshot bonus and a 20% torso bonus, meaning it was basically always a two-shot kill if you were aiming above the belly button. Plus, if you use stopping power, you could actually get a one-shot kill to the head, although it was sometimes a bit difficult to line up. The Odin was tough to use effectively, yes, but it had a lot of sauce in the right hands, and I still remember a few people absolutely swearing that it was underrated in Warzone. I don't know if I really saw the appeal of it in Battle Royale, since the time to kill was so much longer and the fire rate was so slow. I mean, it was pretty easy for an enemy team to outgun you, but if you were working with your teammates and you were providing support, I could see the potential. The Odin, to me, it's a love it or hate it kind of assault rifle, but since we're just talking about fire rates, it gets the number 7 spot, because 413 rounds per minute was one of the slowest ever for a Call of Duty AR. At number 6, the NZ41 in COD World War II. We're almost down into the 300 range with the fire rates, but not quite. The NZ was a rifle added to the COD World War II as part of the Halloween Scream event. Once again, those events, and it returned a few years later in Call of Duty Vanguard. That version had a noticeably higher fire rate, despite it being a relatively slow-firing gun. The COD World War II version of the NZ41 fired at an even 400 rounds per minute. Made it one of the slowest guns in the game. Also, one of the slowest assault rifles in Call of Duty history. And weirdly, the super slow fire rate didn't result in a very high damage profile, because the base damage of the NZ was between 30 and 45. And those headshots, they only gave you an extra 10% damage, meaning the base damage maxed out at 49. So despite firing at 400 rounds per minute, you couldn't actually get a two-shot kill without high caliber on it, which I thought was a little odd, but maybe I was just thinking too much into it. The NZ41 made up for the slow fire rate and awkward damage profile. It did have some clean iron sights, and the recoil was pretty non-existent, so I'm going to ask you guys, what did you think? Was it worth using in COD World War II, or were there better options for slow-firing rifles? Now we arrive at the top 5, and we arrive at the 300 club. The bar in World at War. I love this gun. Lots of people love this gun. There's something so nostalgic about the World at War bar for me. Even if it was one of the clunkiest guns in COD history, I don't care. But that was part of the charm. The World at War bar fired at 375 rounds per minute. Had some of the bounciest and most unpredictable recoil in the entire game, but it also hit like a tank. Base damage on the bar, 45. I mean, 45 up close, 35 at max. It made it a 3-shot kill no matter what. But then if you threw stopping power on your class, the bar would turn into a 2-shot kill at close and mid-range, and with a 3-shot kill across the map, which made it one of the fastest killing weapons in the entire multiplayer. But if you didn't want to run stopping power, go run double tap, which would crank the fire rate all the way up to 500. Woo! We're getting up there, which made it pretty deadly with that 3-shot kill damage profile. So in retrospect, the bar wasn't as good as I thought it was back in the old days of Call of Duty, and I absolutely recognize the fact that a lot of my love for the weapon comes from the nostalgia of the game itself. But at the same time, it's still one of my favorite guns from this era of COD. I love talking about it in these videos whenever I get the excuse and the chance to do it. There was just something about that chunky firing sound and that huge damage profile that made it super satisfying. At number 4, the VKM 750 in Black Ops 4. Now, the VKM was never all that popular in Black Ops 4 for a number of reasons. You had the handling speeds, they were pretty quick for an LMG. The fire rate and the damage per shot, I mean, it turned a lot of people off from using it. The VKM fired at 361 rounds per minute, had a base damage value of 54 per shot, but this was Black Ops 4, when everybody had 150 health. So despite having such a slow fire rate and a high base damage value, it was actually still a 3-shot kill by default, which made the time to kill feel really, really long with this gun. There was a few attachments you could put on it to crank up the base damage and headshots. You could also crank up the damage even more. So, I mean, you could get it to where it was a 2-shot kill, but at the end of the day, if you're firing at 361 rounds per minute, you probably want your 2 shots to be super consistent. VKM didn't have that. It did have a little fan club. They're probably going to come out in the comments here, but it was never a really popular weapon in Black Ops 4 multiplayer. At number 3, the Gorgon in Black Ops 3. Now, I remember when the game came out. Everybody was talking about this LMG because of how insanely slow it was, but also how hard it hit. At that time, this was actually the slowest full auto gun in COD history, which is pretty wild that it's actually been passed twice since Black Ops 3 launched. But The Gorgon has some super slow handling, only fired at 327 rounds per minute, but it was almost always a 2-shot kill. Some people love the gun for the simple fact you could sit back from the battle and tag people a couple times and send them back to the spawn point, but other people hated it because of the fact that it took forever to aim down the sights. And in a game like Black Ops 3, where everyone was boost jumping, everybody was running off the walls, it was difficult to use the Gorgon aggressively. Now granted, you weren't really supposed to use it aggressively, but a lot of Call of Duty players like playing the game that way. And if that's how you play COD, you probably don't like having your gameplay slowed down the way the Gorgon demanded it to. But with a fire rate of 327 rounds per minute, it lands itself in the number 3 spot. The question is, are we going to get into the 200s? At number 2, the Stinger in COD World War II, not to be confused with the Stinger launcher from the original Modern Warfare 3, which was an amazing weapon to have in your back pocket. The Stinger in COD World War II was a light machine gun. Added as DLC a few months into the game's life cycle. Basically, nobody used it because not only was it huge and awkward, but it also had one of the slowest firing rates ever put in a multiplayer FPS game. It fired at 313 rounds per minute. But the trade-off for the fire rate was the base damage value of 50, meaning it was always a 2-shot kill unless the target was really far away. It was also an 80-round default mag, which was pretty nice to have since it meant you didn't have to use extended mags, but ultimately, nobody was using this thing because of how painfully slow the handling and the fire rate was. The only way to use this thing was sit in one place, aim down the sights, tag people from a distance, because if anybody ran up on you, you were never going to get them since they would just bob and weave in between your slow molasses fire rate. You were done. Again, this thing only fired at 313 rounds per minute. But can you believe there's something that fired even slower? I'm going to give you a hint. It was also in COD World War II. And it was also a light machine gun. At number 1 today, the slowest firing gun with the parameters we set up for this video is the Brin in COD World War II. This is it. This is as slow as it's ever gotten. And if you used it back during COD World War II's era, you probably already know. The Brin was one of the launch LMGs in Call of Duty World War II that sported some insane damage per shot, but also had some painfully slow handling speeds. And the iron sights sucked. They were on the side of the gun. So when you aim down the sights of your weapon, the gun itself would be covering the entire right side of the screen. And yes, it would basically always kill in 2 bullets. But those 2 bullets were coming out at 300 rounds per minute. You heard me right. 300 rounds per minute. But you could throw on rapid fire. What would that do? Get you a nice buff in time to kill? Well, no. Because the default fire rate was 300, but the rapid fire rate, get this, you ready? It bumped it up to 319. That's it. Rapid fire only took the Brin up to 319 rounds per minute, which still get it the number 3 spot on today's list. The COD World War II Brin was pathetically slow. And with the default fire rate of 300 rounds per minute, it's easily getting the number 1 spot on today's list. Will we ever get anything slower? I don't know. I doubt it. We've never had a fully automatic weapon in Call of Duty drop into the 200s with its fire rate, and honestly, I don't know if we ever will. Let me know one slow-firing, hard-hitting rifle that did not make the list that was deserving, and I'll see you guys soon.